free. That's 1-800-574-2213.
The plan to end race and gender preferences for university admissions gets the green light, but lawmakers say some rules were broken. And the state prepares for the execution for the first Florida inmate scheduled to die by lethal injection. And it happens more often than you may think. We'll look at what you can do to prevent someone from stealing your good name. These stories and more are straight ahead on Florida Tonight.
Now, the only evening news for all of Florida. This is Florida Tonight.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Melissa Wilson.
And I'm Gordon Graham. The top story in Florida Tonight. It was approved last week by the Board of Regents. Now, the Florida Cabinet has passed the governor's Talented 20 program.
That's the portion of the One Florida initiative regarding college admissions. This afternoon, the cabinet voted 4-2 in favor of the governor's plan to end racial preferences in university admissions. Sarah Walker has more on today's vote.
The governor and cabinet are the final stop for the Talented 20 portion of Governor Jeb Bush's One Florida initiative. Attorney General Bob Butterworth voiced his opposition to the plan that does away with race as a factor in university admissions.
Going down the same road of a bad first impression.
The university regents approved the plan last week and sent it to the cabinet for final approval. Senator Kendrick Meek, the state's most vocal opponent, says the regents didn't follow rules when they approved the plan.
I'm pretty sure that you'll see some administrative action within the next 72 hours that's going to be dealing with that. That's going to automatically offset the rule that was passed by the Board of Regents.
But 5 universities have already taken matters into their own hands by removing race as a factor.
Significantly, the enrollment of minorities in those institutions increased rapidly after this admissions policy change was implemented.
With the passage of the plan, a tourism and citrus boycott by the NAACP becomes more likely. Jeb Bush says a boycott would be a mistake.
I'm against the boycott.
By September, the governor expects an increased number of minority students attending the university system. In Tallahassee, Sarah Walker, Florida's News Channel.
Today's cabinet meeting got off to a bizarre start for Governor Bush.
Governor Bush, hi. I'm a big fan of Florida, and I just wanted to know, Brother George has had a lot of...
As he made his way down the steps to the cabinet meeting room, the governor was accosted by a reporter for the show called The Awful Truth. Bravo Network reporter Jay Martell asked the governor whether he's jealous of his brother, George W. Bush, because the state of Texas has carried out more executions than Florida. FDLE agents escorted Martell out of the area, but he was back again as the meeting got underway.
How soon can we see this segment? I don't know. It depends on... I mean, if I could just talk to Governor Bush, I think segment would be on a lot more quickly, but it doesn't look like a likelihood. I mean, what do you guys think?
Martell was allowed to remain in the Capitol, but he was closely watched by security agents. 2 Florida death row inmates are scheduled to die this week by lethal injection unless final appeals are successful. Tomorrow morning, convicted killer Terry Melvin Sims will become the first inmate in Florida to be executed by lethal injection. Mike Vasalinda has the story.
Florida State Prison will be shrouded in secrecy in the pre-dawn hours Wednesday. A gurney will have replaced the oak chair that has claimed 240 lives.
We are ready and able to carry out a professional and humane administration of lethal injection. We have no doubt about it.
Longwood cop killer Terry Sims made no choice between the electric chair or lethal injection, so by law, lethal injection was his choice. His lawyers argued before the Supreme Court that that was no choice at all.
Choose your poison. That's not right.
One technician will find the veins, another will release the sedative. And like the electric chair, a black hooded executioner being paid $150 in cash will open the valve, unleashing the poison.
And I think laying on that gurney with all this stuff gurgling into your veins for a few minutes, that it didn't actually kill you is enough to make you sit there and think about it and worry about it.
The black-hooded executioner we first interviewed in 1993 told us that how he did his job didn't matter. What mattered, he said, was the end result.
Like I say, they're not even people to me. They're just unredeemable, useless parts of society, it'd be no different than the prettiest rose garden needs pruning.
The U.S. Supreme Court was to have heard pleas next week that Florida's electric chair was cruel and unusual, but the court dropped the case after Florida authorized lethal injection. In Tallahassee, I'm Mike Vasalinda, Florida's News Channel.
Animal rights activists protest in front of the state capitol to help protect fish and other seafood. The group People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals says it's cruel and inhumane to eat seafood. They say fish suffer great pain when they're pulled out of the water.
If you care about animals and you want to make the world a better place for them, the simplest thing that you can do to make the biggest difference is to simply go vegetarian.
PETA members say it's unhealthy to consume seafood. They say thousands of people get sick every year from eating it.
The Coast Guard makes a huge drug bust on the high seas. Crews unloaded what looked like heavy bags of laundry from a Coast Guard cutter Monday. But inside the bags, there was more than 3,300 pounds of marijuana. Investigators say the bales were dumped off a speedboat spotted south of Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, Thursday. The Coast Guard was able to chase down the boat and retrieve the marijuana.
The helicopters began searching, began giving chase on the go-fast vessels. During the chase, there was 4 suspects on board the go-fast vessel, and they were seen dumping the bales over the side of the boat.
Eventually, the speedboat stopped and was boarded by a team from one of the cutters. The 4 male suspects were brought back to Miami, where they are in the custody of U.S. Customs.
A Coast Guard hearing is underway in Tampa into last year's fire aboard the Carnival cruise ship Tropical. The ship was crippled by a fire in the engine room that left the ship adrift while Tropical Storm Harvey raged in the Gulf. The fire is believed to have reached temperatures of 1,200 degrees, hot enough to blister the paint on the outside of the ship's hull and melt heavy equipment in the boiler room. The ship's captain says to avoid panic, passengers were not told of the serious nature of the problem.
A top-ranked military recruiter convicted on sex charges will spend the next year in a military prison, but he's being allowed to stay in the service. That's the sentence a MacDill jury handed down yesterday in the case of Ray Allen. The jury deliberated 5.5 hours. Allen will also lose 3 stripes. He's being demoted from master sergeant to a senior airman. Prosecutors asked for a dishonorable or bad conduct discharge, but the jury did not agree.
A new judge is assigned in the Elian Gonzalez case. The new judge, K. Michael Moore, was picked at random by a computer. He replaces Judge William Hoveler, who is hospitalized after suffering a stroke. Judge Moore will hear arguments about jurisdiction in a federal case filed by Elian's Miami relatives.
An American Airlines MD-80 is forced to make an emergency landing at Miami International Airport. Flight 1139 left Tampa this morning, bound for Dallas. But the plane's nose gear would not close. The plane, carrying 139 people, landed safely in Miami. The passengers changed planes and continued on to Dallas.
The Space Shuttle Endeavour has landed at Kennedy Space Center. High winds and low clouds near the Cape nearly forced a California landing later this evening, but the weather cooperated and Endeavour and her crew landed safely less than an hour ago. The crew completed its Earth mapping mission yesterday. The project involved using radar to map nearly 3/4 of the Earth's surface. NASA is celebrating another success for the Galileo spacecraft. The probe flew within 124 miles of the surface of Io, Jupiter's volcanic moon. The spacecraft survived intense radiation without the computer shutdowns that hindered previous missions. It accomplished its primary goals long ago and is now on its second extended mission. And it's time now for a look at that first weather tonight, and a beautiful day so far.
Oh, great weather, and great weather tonight for watching the stars, the moon, the Galileo space.
Go outside and take a look up. Let's check in with Joe Eisman. Joe, what's going on?
A really nice night all across the state. Plenty of sunshine. There are a few exceptions to that, and that shows up very clearly on the satellite picture. And as we go to that, we do see a fantastic evening all across the Sunshine State with that clockwise flow around a large area of high pressure. We're seeing a little bit of cloud cover now right around Fort Pierce down in the Upper Keys. And with that, a few scattered light rain showers, but all in all, a very clear evening, a little bit of cloud cover as I mentioned, but as far as temperatures, it should be a very comfortable night, especially across central and south Florida with overnight lows tonight, mainly in the 50s and the 60s. The northern part of the state will see overnight lows in the 40s. Certainly cool, but definitely not cold. And I'll be back in a few minutes with a little more detail on your forecast.
Thanks, Joe. Some treasure hunters are finding an incredible bounty on the ocean floor.
But it's not gold or shipwreck artifacts that lure these divers. That story's ahead on Florida Tonight. Welcome back. A Tallahassee teacher is trying to clear her name after an imposter allegedly assumed her identity and went on a spending spree.
Robert Alonzo has more on this case and what you can do to prevent crooks from stealing your identity.
Sharon Bradwell never imagined someone would want to steal her identity.
You know, this is movies. I'm thinking, you know, someone take your identity. This is something that happens in the movie.
Detectives arrested Sharon's alleged imposter, 25-year-old Letitia Glenn, Monday, but not before officials say she opened 4 bank accounts, passed bad checks, and maxed out 7 credit cards in Sharon's name. And there's more.
She went to the public library and had manufactured new birth certificates for herself and also for her children.
Detectives say Letitia Glenn got a hold of Sharon's personal information while working in the credit department at Farmer's Furniture, where Sharon had made a purchase.
In this case, there wasn't very much Sharon Bradwell could do to protect her identity, but in general, police will tell you there are things you can do so that crooks don't cash in on your good name.
For starters, officials say shred all documents that contain personal information before trashing them. That includes credit card receipts. Limit the amount of information you have printed on your checks. If a clerk wants your driver's license number, let them ask for it. And monitor your credit history closely.
I'm going through a lot now. I'm being told that it will take me up to a year to get, you know, all of this straight.
And officials say Sharon's case is not an isolated one. They say imposter fraud is becoming more and more common, and everyone is fair game. In Tallahassee, Robert Alonzo, Florida's News Channel.
Have to protect yourself from that stuff.
Yes, you've got to beware.
And Texans are having to protect themselves from weather tonight, but not us.
Yeah, there's just this long line of severe thunderstorms through Texas and Oklahoma, and people in Florida are probably wondering, well, is that weather out across the plains going to affect Florida? But right now, the weather couldn't be better. It's just a fantastic night out there. Clear to partly cloudy skies. You'll probably need a jacket when you step outside, but not a bad night considering the weather that we could see across the Sunshine State. Here's a look at your temperatures now. 65 degrees in Tallahassee, 62 in Apalachicola, 59 degrees right now in Panama City. As we look at temperatures elsewhere, we see 66 in Orlando, 72 down in Naples, and 70 right now in West Palm Beach and also in Fort Myers. Here's what's going on across the rest of the southeast. Really not too much really happening. Large area of high pressure center right around the Chesapeake Bay. We've got that clockwise flow around it, so we're getting an onshore flow, and that's leading to a little bit of cloud development and a few scattered showers roughly from Fort Pierce down into the upper part of the Keys. But aside from that, high pressure really hanging in there, giving us mostly clear skies. As far as rainfall, we do see a little, again, right around Fort Pierce, a little bit of scattered activity now right around Miami and Fort Lauderdale. Those are the exceptions. That rainfall should gradually taper off later on tonight without any severe weather. But across the plains, it is a really nasty night, especially North Texas, most of western Oklahoma, where a severe thunderstorm watch does remain in effect until midnight. But the rough weather continues all the way through Kansas. But the good news for Floridians is we're not going to be dealing with rough weather anytime soon. High pressure right around the Chesapeake Bay area will keep us really dry and mild over the next couple days, while this area of low pressure now in the Rockies will continue working its way well to the north, taking with it any rough weather. Certainly no rough weather tonight. It'll be a relatively cool night across the northern part of the state, with lows mainly in the 40s, a few 50s from Ocala down in through Tampa Bay and Naples and Fort Myers, and 60 for the southern tip of the peninsula. And tomorrow, a fantastic afternoon with daytime highs in the 70s statewide. with plenty of sunshine, and that'll make for a very nice afternoon. So as far as any severe weather, even the threat of showers or thunderstorms, we're certainly not going to be dealing with that anytime soon. So the nice weather will probably take us into the early part of the weekend. And of course, with springtime right around the corner, a lot of people planning outdoor activities, softball, beach, all that kind of fun stuff. It should be nice.
Dry and mild does sound good, but we could use a little rain.
Yeah, well, springtime will certainly get our showers.
My lawn is very thirsty.
Yeah.
Until then, we can start planting those flowers and get out and enjoy it a little bit.
There you go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, Florida's waters have always been associated with tales of sunken treasure, glittering jewels, and tons of gold.
While those legends may be more fiction than fact, there is one deep sea industry making millions. Robert Burns has more in tonight's Made in Florida.
Tourists pile on the St. Nicholas 7 during her off-season. One last call.
All aboard!
And the wooden sponger turns to the waters of the Gulf. For the last 100 years, boats just like this, staffed with men just like this, have made Tarpon Springs the sponge capital of the Western Hemisphere.
The sponge industry was the largest industry in Florida for a period of 50 years. It passed citrus, it passed tourism, and any other fishery that we had. It was a mainline industry.
In the years after World War II, man-made sponges became cheaper than the natural ones, almost crushing Tarpon Springs industry. 85-year-old Manny Salakis was born here.
Once upon a time, back when the town was thriving, they had 125 diving boats out of here, with anywhere from 6 to 10 divers.
Now, the fleet is a small fraction of what it once was. But then in the 1980s, a sponge blight in the Mediterranean and a boom in the demand for natural sponges pushed Tarpon Springs back into the international spotlight. This small town generated $12 million a year in sponges for more than a decade. But the last few years haven't been so good.
We've been hit by a couple of blights or diseases in the past few years ago. Mostly from the 10-foot out to the 25-foot beds have been hit really hard.
Meaning they have to dive deeper, making an already dangerous job more dangerous.
Should he stay down too long or come up too fast from deep water, he's subject to a paralysis known as the bends.
Potentially deadly. Despite the risk, this coming spring, Tarpon Springs divers will once again defy death, harvesting the deep and thrilling thousands of northern visitors.
You're producing something that it's real. We didn't put an industry together to give you a tourist business.
Right.
We became a tourist attraction because of the industry, which makes a big difference.
This year, the industry is expected to generate about $2 million in sponge sales here in Tarpon Springs, but about $20 million in tourism. And while tourist spots change and tourists fly elsewhere, the sponges will remain. And sales bins around the world will continue to feature products made in Florida.
Tarpon Springs sponges are the best sponges in the world.
Biased, but that doesn't mean it's not true. In Tarpon Springs, I'm Robert Burns, Florida's News Channel.
Quite a treasure itself.
Absolutely.
The presidential campaign season is in full swing, and one Florida artist says hail to the chief in her own unique way.
And in sports, the Jaguars welcome him in a free agent chief of their own. Dave Reed will fill us in next with sports. We'll be back with Florida Tonight in a moment.
Nickerson gets out to about the 7. Intercepted by the Buccaneer defense for their...
Welcome back, everyone. Dave Reed is here with the latest in the world of sports.
And the Jaguars shelled out a few bucks for a veteran.
It's life in the National Football League, you know? You pay the big bucks, you get a big player, and that's exactly what the Jaguars did. The Jaguars made their first big move in free agency and didn't have to go very far to find their new Pro Bowl linebacker. He is one Hardy Nickerson. He comes over from Tampa, where he started the past 7 NFL seasons. Nickerson inked a 4-year, $16 million deal, and despite being 34 years old, he considers himself to be just like a fine bottle of wine.
Haven't had any major injuries, and just continue to get better each year. Normally guys at my age are starting to fall off, but I'll continue to get better, and you know, I can't wait till this upcoming season because I think it's going to be something special.
I wonder what a $16 million bottle of wine tastes like. Meanwhile, the Dolphins are trying to solidify their running back situation. Yesterday they auditioned Thurman Thomas, and today they had Adrian Morrell and Priest Holmes in camp. Needless to say, they could be signing someone pretty soon. Now, over in Tampa tomorrow marks the beginning of a new winning attitude when all position players, including newly acquired third baseman Vinny Castilla, arrived to spring training. His job, it's a complicated one: hit the ball and help the Devil Rays make the postseason.
I think if everybody stay healthy all season, I think we can be in the hunt for postseason play, because I think we got one of the best lineups in the American League, and the pitching is improved a lot. And I think we got a great chance if everybody stay healthy the whole season. I think we got a great chance to go to the playoffs.
Now, the Orlando Magic are out on the West Coast for a late-night tilt with the Sonics. The Magic are in for a dogfight for the last playoff spot with the Pistons. And speaking of the playoffs, the Heat are skidding faster than a 747 on an icy runway of late. Last night's loss to Detroit dropped them out of the top spot in the Atlantic, and you could add injury to insult. Alonzo Mourning suffers a broken nose in the contest. He did come back to score 20 points, however, before fouling out. The Heat will be home Wednesday to face the Nets. Now, South Florida's other team, the Panthers, may have the top goal scorer in the league in Pavel Bure, but their lead over the Capitals in the Southeast has dwindled to just 4 points. And guess what? Tomorrow night they play against Washington with a chance to get healthy in a hurry.
Against them, we're trying to keep the lead in our division, our conference. That yes, this makes it very important to us, and we have to come out and play with a little more urgency and try to get this thing turned around right now and go from there.
The NHL knows where Marty McSorley can go. Last night, the Bruins' McSorley took a stick to the face of Vancouver's Donald Brashear, who then hit his head on the ice. McSorley has been suspended indefinitely, and the NHL will hold a hearing tomorrow to determine further disciplinary action. And you can bet his McWallet will be even McSorer. Don't you love hockey players at that age? They're so cute.
Oh my goodness,
like
cute.
That.
That's the word I'm looking for.
Nice boys.
Thanks, Dave. Watch out.
You know, one Florida artist believes that you can have a Coke and a smile and then turn it into some presidential artwork.
Folk artist Mary Proctor has created likenesses of the U.S. presidents from Coke cans. Everyone from Washington and Jefferson to William Jefferson Clinton. She says she decided to do the presidential series when her daughter came home from school with a project about the U.S. commanders-in-chief. She used donated doors and used Coke cans, along with sayings from all 42 presidents.
I want people to recognize that everybody somewhere in life left something good they had to say.
Proctor says if she sells the series, she plans to donate the money to a scholarship fund. How creative. What a great idea. And let's look at that beautiful weather, Joe.
I'm telling you, I need to spend some time outside because we're looking at a nice forecast all across the state. Here's what you can expect tomorrow. A lot of sunshine statewide with highs well into the 70s. A little bit on the cool side in Jacksonville, but you can hardly call 70 this time of the year in Jacksonville cool. But either way, a nice looking day. Maybe some coastal showers early in the morning in southeast Florida. But otherwise, a beautiful day. And this nice weather's going to last for several days.
Thanks, Joe. And we thank you for joining us tonight on Florida Tonight. I'm Gordon Gray.
And I'm Melissa Wilson. On behalf of everyone here, thanks for joining us. We'll see you back here in just a couple minutes.
Will the One Florida initiative actually increase minorities in Florida's universities? That's what the governor is saying. The cabinet votes today to remove racial preferences from college admissions. We'll look at what this means to the class of 2000. And this could be a museum piece. Tomorrow, Florida is expected to execute a man using a lethal injection. But last-minute appeals to this new form of capital punishment could delay the execution. We'll have updates today on Florida's News Channel.